What could be said about Resident Evil 4 that has not been said over the course of the last 10 years? Since its release in 2005, it has seen release on what seems like every single system known to man, and it has received much acclaim from critics and fans alike since the day of its release. What is it then that has caused this game to receive such widespread acclaim? Let's take a look. In Resident Evil 4, you play as Leon S. Kennedy, one of the two heroes of Resident Evil 2, a fan favorite to be sure. This game takes place about 6 years after the incident in Raccoon City that the previous games focused on. In it, Leon S. Kennedy is working under the direct order of the President himself. He has been sent by the President to a lonely and rural part of Europe that appears to be somewhere in Spain. This part of Europe was the last known location of the President's daughter, who was recently kidnapped. At the beginning of the game, Leon is driven out to a house near a village, where he gets out of the car to stop and ask a local person about the President's daughter. Upon meeting this very first person in the game, he discovers that things in this village definitely are not as they seem. From here, the truth about this secluded area of Europe slowly begins to unravel as Leon gets deeper and deeper into the village and the castle beyond. Over the course of his journey, he will run into old friends and old enemies, and make new friends and new enemies as well. Resident Evil 4 does change the Resident Evil formula in a number of ways, but it never actually makes it not feel like a Resident Evil game. This is still the survival horror you know and love, it's just coming at you in a new way. Much like the previous Resident Evil games, this game really relies on atmosphere, although the jump scares are kept to a bare minimum in this game, which I think actually works in the game's favor. The horror atmosphere of the previous games is still 100% here. The enemies in this game might actually be more frightening than the ones in previous games because they are significantly smarter. Unlike previous games, you are not dealing with zombies. You are dealing with human beings who are infected with a plague-like creature. And these human beings will do things like throw objects at you, dodge to the side when you try to shoot them, run at you, or try to flank you. They are much more intelligent than they have been in previous entries in this series. Honestly, them being more intelligent makes for better gunfights than this has ever had. The biggest change that Resident Evil 4 makes to the Resident Evil formula is that it takes the camera and lowers it down to be over your shoulder for the entire game. It lets you go into a precise aiming mode by pulling one of the buttons and then aiming with the analog stick. This results directly in you being able to shoot any part of the opponent's body, and they will react appropriately. If you shoot them in the head, they might stagger backwards and fall to the ground. If you shoot them in the leg, their leg will be hurt and they will stagger because of that. If you shoot them in the arm, they're liable to grab their arm. It's very, very smart in how it does this. It really does keep track of where you shoot enemies. The controls have been smoothed out a lot from previous games, where you used to just control like a tank where going left and right just turned your character. This is much more smooth and fluid than any of the previous games. You won't spend a lot of your time just trying to navigate your character around a wall like you did in previous entries in the series. This is not the only gameplay change though. Enemies can now give you ammo, and considering how many of them there are to dispatch in this game, you will be glad for this. Otherwise you would run out of ammo extremely quickly and be resorting to just running from people and trying to knife as many enemies as you possibly can. The knife has been delegated to another one of the shoulder buttons this time. You hold down the button, it brings out your knife. It is no longer an item in your equipment. The equipment system has been changed as well. Everything takes up a couple blocks of space, and you have a set amount of blocks to fit them all into your inventory, and you can move and rearrange things and turn them on their side to get them to fit. Over the course of the game, you will be able to buy upgrades. that will increase the size of your stash of items that you carry. This game has a merchant, and that is where you will buy the upgrades from. He does more than just upgrade your inventory. He will also sell you weapons over the course of the game should you choose to buy, use, and experiment with them. Just keep in mind that you want to keep a good set of weapons, but you don't want to keep only weapons because you're going to need things like healing items that you will pick up over the course of the game. The herbs are back, and you will be able to combine them into different concoctions that will heal more and more of your health. But you can buy upgrades from the merchant now, and he will also sell you maps that will show you where all the treasure is should you choose to buy them. Last but not least, he will let you upgrade your weapons, and you will be able to use money that you find from killing enemies and from exploring the environment, and use that to purchase upgrades for your various weapons to make them more powerful. You'll get a series of upgrades for each one, and then a special upgrade for everyone that does something like increases the ammo total that it can hold by a bunch, or greatly increases the power of the weapon. While this game has a much bigger focus on guns than any of the previous games in the series, it does not make it feel like an action game. This still feels like a horror game, and that makes it better because of it. Besides, the controls really aren't designed for action. For example, you cannot move while shooting, which, considering the fact that they got this right in the first Dino Crisis on the PlayStation 1, this is a little confusing, but you can't move while shooting. What does keep the horror feeling in there is things like excellent enemy design, especially with the Los Plagas and the various monsters that you fight, and top-notch ambient music that really drives home a fantastic atmosphere that this game has. The music never gets in the way, it is never overly loud, it never overpowers it, it's mixed in perfectly, and it is wonderfully atmospheric and gets the job done extremely well. While I wouldn't call the music in this game particularly memorable, that's mostly because the music in this game has a tendency to be very ambient instead of catchy, which ultimately works better for the game. It very much works in its favor. The script in this game is a little iffy in spots, but for the most part it works just fine. Then again, what would a Resident Evil game be without a little bit of iffiness in the script? The voice acting, on the other hand, is actually pretty decent throughout. While it's not going to blow you away like more recent games like The Last of Us, it is fine for what it is, and all the actors are just fine and perfectly believable as their characters. The voice acting in this series has come a long way since the atrocious voice acting in the first Resident Evil game. The footage we're looking at right here is from my playthrough of the PlayStation 2 version of the game. This was recorded on a Hauppauge HP DVR with component cables. I took the footage into Sony Vegas and I did color correction and image sharpening to it, so it looks a bit better than you will get from the game even through component cables. But the game itself is by no means bad looking. This is, however, the worst looking version of the game. The version of the game on the GameCube looks slightly better than this did, and subsequent versions have improved on the visuals quite a bit, to the point where the more recent HD release of it is gorgeous. It made this game look really sharp, which I'm sure probably exposes how old the animation is, and I'm sure it's nothing in comparison to something Naughty Dog might do, but that doesn't detract from the overall game and how much fun this game is. For what it is, it looks fine, but what does hold up very well is the art design in this game. The enemies are varied, there are a lot of them that you will come across over the course of this game, and they can all be kind of creepy and awesome to fight against. This game is so much fun to play, and enemy design and art design plays a large part in that. It makes it feel like a horror game, even more so than just the soundtrack and the setting do, both of which are equally excellent. Resident Evil 4 has received seemingly infinite praise since it was released in 2005, but this is for a damned good reason. This game was fantastic. Not only was it fantastic, it was a major game changer for the industry as a whole. Not only did this change how we played survival horror games, but it changed how we played third-person shooter games as well. Many games have come out over the past 10 years that have taken something from this game. For example, Gears of War took the over-the-shoulder camera and did its own thing with it. Cold Fear came out and people flat out accused it of being a ripoff of this game. The Resident Evil series continued with the over-the-shoulder camera that this one is known for. Most notably of these, however, was Dead Space, which a lot of people claimed was Resident Evil 4 in space, despite the fact that it takes the Resident Evil 4 formula and improves upon it in a number of ways. The question remains, however, have any of these games actually surpassed the greatness of Resident Evil 4? And will any survival horror game ever surpass the greatness of Resident Evil 4 and what it means to the industry as a whole? Only time will tell, but for now, this is definitely a game that should be in everyone's collection. If you have not played Resident Evil 4 over the past 10 years, definitely pick this one up. It is available on the PlayStation 2, the GameCube, the Nintendo Wii, the PlayStation 3, the Xbox 360, iOS devices, and there are 2 versions on PC. Although if you get one of the versions on PC, get the HD re-release of it that came out recently, as it has much better controls, and it looks a lot better. Resident Evil 4 is worthy of all of the praise that it has received over the past 10 years. This is a fantastic game, and I thoroughly enjoyed my Let's Play. Thank you everybody for watching this review. I highly recommend this game. Please like, comment, and subscribe down below. Please share this video. It would help me out a lot and I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks everybody. Bye.